my almost 3 decades of helping countless hundreds involved in various world religions, cults, and Eastern mysticism, and even today as I talk to pagans, witches, New Agers, and spiritual seekers who communicate with the dead and do psychic readings, I find there is much confusion about the supernatural world and God's angels and fallen angels known as demons and devils. The Bible explains the differing functions of both good and fallen angels, and Psalm 91 says of God's messengers,
"For he will give his angels charge concerning you, to guard you in all your ways."
Martin Luther, the famous German theologian who began the Protestant Reformation, said,
"An angel is a spiritual creature without a body, created by God for the service of Christendom and the Church."
Throughout the Bible, God's supernatural guardians are at the believer's service, not as one guardian angel allocated to only one human as popularly understood, but unknown millions available to intercede in the affairs of men and judgment of nations. In the world-famous Christmas story, God's angels are shown as messengers as they herald the good news of the birth of his Son, Jesus the Messiah, and appear to shepherds near Jerusalem. When Jesus was about 30 years old, the Bible teaches that ministering angels appeared to him after he'd successfully overcome 3 rigorous temptations by Satan, who encouraged Jesus to bow down and worship him to gain worldly riches and fame, which are Satan's to offer. At God's command, we learn that his angels are faithful to help, comfort, guide, protect, and provide for his people. They move between 2 worlds, the unseen world where they have the advantage of seeing all supernatural beings and mankind, and the natural world where they interact with humans who can't see them unless they take on a physical form. Angels have supreme importance and power in a monumental spirit world conflict that began in the supernatural realm shortly after the dawn of human history and continues on earth today with increasing superhuman powers. Bitter wars have ravaged civilizations throughout the centuries, using the satanically inspired principles of greed, power, and control. But modern warfare, combined with today's technology, huge financial resources, and fanatical religious zeal displayed in global terrorism could wipe out our Earth's civilization as we know it. A destruction Satan desires and a predicament the Bible warns about. The root cause of this conflict, fearful mayhem and perpetual crisis, started in the unseen world with the angels. Contrary to world-famous artistic renderings, angels are not females, males, or young children. They are without age and sexless. They are also non-material, without bodies of flesh and blood, although they can appear as humans, as shown in the Bible. They are not given in marriage or able to procreate, but remain static in number since the time they were created by God. Despite popular opinion, angels are not human beings who have died and now been transformed into ghosts or spirit beings able to return to their earthly realm and communicate with humans and loved ones. When a human dies, if a believer in Jesus, his eternal spirit goes immediately to be with Jesus in heaven. But if not a believer, he is already judged and separated from God for all eternity, which is known as hell. Angels, uniquely created by God to be just that, angels, live in a supernatural dimension. Their infinite power, capacity, knowledge, and mobility are beyond our human comprehension and outside the boundaries of our natural world. Their original purpose was to glorify God and perform good works of righteousness until, at a certain time in history, a massive angelic rebellion took place. The Bible teaches there was one angel of great authority, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty, who had God's mighty seal of perfection. He was called Lucifer, son of the morning, and today appears as an angel of light. Although created blameless, this anointed cherubim, in an incomprehensible act of pride called the mystery of iniquity, corrupted his power and glory when of his own free will he regarded equality with God a thing to be grasped and was filled with violence. In an unprecedented crusade of self-pride and delusions of grandeur, he persuaded perhaps a third of the heavenly angels to join his ranks, an act which marked the introduction of sin into the universe. Thus began the horrendous war against God, who cast Lucifer, also known as Satan, the serpent, and the dragon of old, to earth, where he is given a certain amount of restrained supernatural authority by God. Unlike God, Satan is not all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-present. He remains controlled by the permissive will of God and entitled Prince of the Power of the Air. As head of this present world system that is a real though invisible power of the supernatural, Satan and his fallen angels work tirelessly in world governments and human institutions. Satan's vast and mighty network of fallen angels are called principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness of this world, and the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. They primarily target their hostilities against the work of God through humanity. Scriptures teach that mankind is naive of Satan's devices and abilities to deceive, and we see his trickery in the story of the Garden of Eden. Disguised as a serpent, Satan successfully seduced God's perfect human creatures, who up to that time were innocent and blameless. Duped by Satan's subtle cunning, the first female, Eve, was deceived and beguiled the first man, Adam. Thus, Satan secured the downfall of the whole human race as greed, selfishness, ambition, and sinful pride entered man, the world, and the whole world system. But in contrast to Satan and his fallen angels, who of their own volition chose to rebel against God, Adam and Eve were deceived to disobey God. In a story of grace and love, God made provision for the descendants of Adam and Eve and gave mankind an exit from our inherited punishment. Instead of eternal separation from God through the wages of sin, God gave us a free gift of eternal life, a gift not extended to the fallen angels. Jesus, God's Messiah, said,
"My sheep hear my voice, and they follow me, and I give eternal life to them, and they will never perish, and no one will snatch them out of my hand."
But as in the Garden of Eden, today Satan continues to use his strategy and lies of deception to divert man's mind and emotions from God's plan for his life. We're told to be on the alert.
Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. But resist him, firm in your faith, knowing that the same experiences of suffering are being accomplished by your brethren who are in the world.
Appealing substitutes abound in a world filled with seducing counterfeits designed to satisfy humanity's spiritual need for love and acceptance. An overwhelming plethora of influences bombard our lives daily, many of which can lead to eternal peril and dangerous addictions. Gambling, alcohol, drugs, pornography, video games of violence, occult fantasy, dark fiction, horror movies.
Finally, a scary movie that delivers the goods.
And for humanity's self-improvement, emotional control, and spiritual education, we're offered altered states through yoga, centering, meditation, and powers from the paranormal, witchcraft, magic, and spells. Many New Agers use terminology that sounds like Christian words. Some witches call their meeting places or covens a church, and fallen angels are called guardian angels or spirit guides. But angels of God can't be beckoned through man's prayers or rituals, because they only obey God's instructions. They never draw attention to themselves, but only to God's power and His messages. But fallen angels can be conjured up through man's efforts and lie about their own destructive powers and enter through seemingly innocent doorways.